At 64, Karen Clark Sheard never imagined she'd be dragged into the kind of public storm currently circling her name, especially not by someone who used to be close to her inner circle. But that's exactly what's happening, and the gospel community is spinning in disbelief. The person pointing fingers isn't some random critic or bitter stranger, it's Dillard, a figure long tied to the same spaces Karen has dominated for decades. What he's just unleashed has turned quiet whispers into thunderous uproar, and the gospel world is watching every move. Karen has spent a lifetime building a legacy, not just as a Clark sister, but as a pillar of gospel music, a woman whose voice is recognized as anointed, whose presence commands stages and sanctuaries alike. Her grace, power, and undeniable impact made her nearly untouchable. But now, that legacy is being challenged from within. And it's not petty shade, it's full-blown allegations of manipulation, favoritism, and quiet sabotage. What makes this scandal even more potent is that Dillard is not just calling out behavior, he claims to have proof. Screenshots, conversations, audio clips. And what he's alluding to could change how people view Karen Clark Sheard forever. Dillard has been hinting for years that things weren't quite right in gospel's upper echelon. But the way this all blew up wasn't planned, it exploded. It started with small shifts, people say. Karen and her circle pulling away from Dillard online. Events he was once featured in suddenly stopped including him. Opportunities that had once been promised were quietly withdrawn, without explanation. And through it all, there was one name that kept surfacing behind the scenes. Karen. At first, Dillard kept quiet. He honored the unspoken rules of the gospel world. Don't speak against the elders. Don't disrupt the peace. Don't ruin someone's ministry. But when he finally broke his silence, he did it with clarity, emotion, and the kind of boldness that suggested he had simply had enough. In a now viral live stream, he unburdened himself of what he called years of weight that had been sitting on his chest. He didn't say her name directly, but it didn't take much for gospel fans to connect the dots. He spoke about the hypocrisy behind the pulpit, about leaders who preach love on Sunday but pull strings behind closed doors to block rising artists they feel threatened by, about people who mentor publicly but sabotage privately. And then came the quote that sent gospel Twitter into a frenzy. She's not a queen. She's a gatekeeper in a broken system, and she's been doing this for years. That line cracked something open. Fans immediately began speculating. Was he talking about Karen? It sounded like her. The references to high hair, family legacy, and controlling access to platforms aligned to perfectly. What followed was a social media meltdown. TikTokers dissected the stream, YouTubers dropped reaction videos, gospel influencers weighed in cautiously. Even some artists posted cryptic messages, some with shade, some with prayer hands, but almost none denying that something real was unfolding. And then there was Karen's daughter, Kira. She didn't name anyone either, but her post was telling. God reveals always. Sometimes silence is strength. That message hit hard. Fans didn't know if it was a subtle defense, a veiled warning, or both. Karen herself? Completely silent. No statement, no denial, no explanation. And that silence only fueled the flames. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Dillard didn't just vent, he promised more. He said he had receipts, not gossip, not assumptions, but concrete proof. Audio recordings, private messages, conversations that allegedly paint Karen and maybe others as power players using their influence to block, blacklist, and control who rises in gospel and who stays in the shadows. People in his inner circle confirmed that he's been sitting on this evidence for a while and was only pushed to speak out after years of spiritual gaslighting and being told to stay quiet for the sake of unity. Insiders claim some of these recordings include Karen speaking in coded language about how to handle Dillard. He says that was gospel code for block him quietly, but make it look like love. And according to people who've heard the tapes, this wasn't something from 10 years ago, it's fresh. Conversations from just a year or two ago. If that's true, it means this isn't a case of old drama being dredged up. It's an active situation, one that could still be playing out behind closed doors. What's terrifying for the industry is that Dillard's claims don't just implicate Karen. Apparently, there are other big names caught in the net. If Dillard really does go public with everything, this scandal won't be a one-person takedown. It could trigger a domino effect across gospel music, one that exposes how decisions are really made, who's been kept out, and how image has been protected over integrity for years. The gospel world is now holding its breath. Karen's silence, once seen as maturity, is starting to look like fear. Or maybe it's strategy. People close to her say she's getting legal advice. Others claim she's hoping the storm will pass without her having to get her hands dirty. But the question on everyone's lips is simple. If she's innocent, why not just say so? Meanwhile, Dillard is receiving mixed reactions. Some call him brave. Others say he's being messy and disrespectful to someone who paved the way for artists like him. But even those who criticize him can't deny the system he's describing sounds eerily familiar. Too many younger artists have similar stories. Too many careers stalled for reasons they couldn't explain. And too many powerful figures got away with playing both victim and villain under the veil of church business. Church elders are begging Dillard not to release the proof. They're urging him to handle it in private, behind closed doors. But Dillard's response to that has been clear. They weren't private when they blocked me. They weren't private when they lied. So why should I be quiet now? His message is less about revenge and more about revealing what he believes is a toxic cycle that keeps new voices from thriving unless they play by the unspoken rules. And the effects are already being felt. Events that were supposed to feature both Karen and Dillard are now being restructured. Gospel conventions are scrambling to avoid booking either name until this blows over. Organizers fear public protests, boycotts, or worse, viral confrontations. Even gospel blogs are treading carefully, choosing words like alleged and reportedly while acknowledging this is no longer just a rumor. It's real. The scariest part. No one knows how this will end. If Dillard really has the receipts and if they're as damaging as insiders claim, then the gospel industry could be facing its biggest reckoning in decades. This isn't just about drama. It's about power, image, control, and the quiet politics that have shaped the gospel world from the inside out. Karen Clark Sheard has stood on stages with choirs behind her and worshippers in front of her, commanding respect as a woman of God. But now, she stands in the center of a different kind of spotlight, one where silence isn't strength, it's suspicion. The question is no longer, did something happen? It's what's coming next. Because if Dillard presses play on what he claims to have, it won't just shake Karen's image. It will rattle the entire gospel hierarchy, and no one at the top will be safe.